All right, everybody, I am back in the lab, aka the weight room, and I want to talk a little bit more about using bands to optimize your training. Last video, I talked about using band assistance on your heavy lifts to make them safer and more effective. If that's what you're interested in, go check that video out. But today I want to talk about using band resistance to optimize your speed training. Now, band resistance and band assistance are similar in that they both provide progressive resistance throughout the movement, meaning at the bottom of the lift, it's going to feel lighter, there's going to be less resistance, and at the top of the lift, it's going to feel heavier, there's going to be more resistance. But they do differ, and you're going to want to use one or the other depending on what your goal is for the training. And they differ in that the rate of change of the progression varies for different points of the movement depending on which one you use. Now, that's a whole lot of jargon, but what I mean by that is that when you use band assistance, the biggest difference you're going to get in resistance is going to be from the bottom to the midpoint. So it's going to feel relatively light at the bottom of the lift, and then it's going to be a huge difference to that midpoint. It's going to start to feel very heavy at that midpoint, but then from the midpoint to the top, there's not going to be a huge difference. And the reason you want that for your heavier lifts is because at the bottom, you're weakest and you're most vulnerable to injury, so it gives you the most assistance. But then once you get to that midpoint, you're pretty strong, you got some momentum, you're in a more advantageous position, a less injury risky position, and so you can power through that from that point on. You don't need that much progressive resistance through the rest of the movement. It's the opposite for resistance. So for resistance from the bottom to the midpoint, it's not going to be a huge difference. They're both going to be relatively light, but then from the midpoint on to the very end of the movement, the high end, the end of the lift, you're going to feel a huge progression in resistance. And the reason that's good for speed training is because a big part of training for speed is the intent to move the weight fast. Now, if you don't have a band on there and you're just using a weight, like I'm about to do speed squats, if I'm just doing the bar, then I have to self-regulate the deceleration, meaning I have to control myself and slow the weight down as I get to the top. So I can't have that intent to move the weight fast. But if I have bands on there and I have that progressive resistance and the rate is getting real high at the end, meaning basically if I have that band tight enough, I'm basically gonna run into a brick wall where I can't stretch it anymore and it's gonna be super heavy. Then I can have that intent to move the weight as fast as I possibly can, and that way you can optimize your training. So I'm gonna demonstrate this real quick. First, I'm gonna do it without bands, and you might be able to see that I kind of have to slow myself down, and you know, as you squat, you want to pull the bar into your back. So I'm going to do that, and maybe just for demonstration, I'll let it fly up a little bit. But you either have to, the bar's going to fly off my back, my feet are going to come off the ground, or I'm going to have to slow myself down. So as I do that here, you can see the bar flies up, my feet come off the ground, or I have to slow myself down. Right? So, bands lined up. So now I got these double looped. So there will be a big progression in weight from that midpoint to the top of the lift. And that's going to allow me to move the weight with intent to move it as fast as I possibly can throughout the entire move, from the bottom of the lift all the way through the top. So I go down, it's pretty light here. And as you can see, I can really rip all the way through that movement. I can give it everything I got, and the band slows me down. I don't have to slow myself down, so I can keep that intent up. Now, if you want to learn any more about this, or why you might want to do speed training, even if you aren't a pro athlete, which you should, or if you even want all of this just programmed for you so you don't have to think about it, you don't have to understand all these big words I'm trying to use, head to RallisRegimen.com. We got a lot of great free information there. And we also do fully customized programs, so you don't have to think, you don't have to guess. All you got to do is show up and work hard. This was band resistance speed training, and this is the Rallis regimen.